Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host. I'm a filmmaker on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode I pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on streaming. I pick a favorite film from that topic and battle it out against a guest to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 1. Hello, podsters or podroonies, if you prefer. We are back again for another episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. And as you may be aware, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, is hitting cinemas around the world. It was brought forward a little bit, so this one is a tad late, but what can I do? So, of course, we are relating the episode to monster films / kaiju films. So it's very exciting. And, of course, I'm joined by a guest, as always, people, a new guest, a debutante to take me on, Parker from Dissect That Film. How are you, sir?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you for inviting me on the show.
Excellent.
Very excited to talk about kaijus and monsters.
Excellent, hey? Parker, if people don't know, what's your podcast about and where can we find you on the socials?
So I am one of 3 hosts of the Dissect That Film podcast, or just Dissect That Film. We're a podcast that breaks down the plots of your favorite films and film franchises. We literally go from beginning to end, going through somewhat every bit of a movie's plot, with comedy and it's a mixed bag of what we do over there. But we cover all sorts of films. We're not strictly horror, not strictly action. We do it all, and I do it with my wonderful co-hosts Dan and Angela. And you can find us pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts. We're on YouTube. We're on all the social media apps that you could think of. We're probably there. Just type in Dissect That Film and you'll find us.
Excellent. That's the go-to phrase, isn't it? Wherever you find this podcast, you'll find us,
Yeah, pretty much.
Everyone says that. I say that when I guest. So Godzilla x Kong, have you seen it?
I have.
What did you make of it then?
It is a popcorn action flick where it is when you were a kid and you were playing with action figures, or you were playing with, like me, I was playing with dinosaur toys and you were bashing them together, making them fight. That's what Godzilla x Kong is.
And why not?
As a man in his 30s, I still had a big old smile on my face watching every bit of this movie. It's incoherent in some parts, but it is one of those just turn your brain off a little bit and just have a good time. That's kind of where the MonsterVerse has gone now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the total shifts, if you will, from the first Godzilla from Gareth Edwards, where it was pretty serious, like treating it very realistic with Aaron Taylor-Johnson and Bryan Cranston, kind of very emotional death scenes in that too. And like you hardly ever see Godzilla in that film, but when you do, there are some incredible sequences in that first film. And then we go to Godzilla x Kong, where like Kong has got like a arm brace or something and an axe, and Godzilla is pink now. So just a wild tonal shift, I think, really, of just making them really fun movies. I do wish like Adam Wingard would like do something more in line with like The Guest and You're Next now, though, to be honest. I'm like, you've done 2 big, huge monster films now. Let's do something a bit more in the vein of those 2 films.
Yeah, the thing about the MonsterVerse that I've noticed, and I think the reason why we were in the situation we are with the MonsterVerse movies and Godzilla x Kong, is that Godzilla 2014, yes, as you had stated, it takes itself a lot more serious. It is very much like Jaws in a way where you don't see Godzilla very much in the movie, but when you see him, it's such an emotional impact because of, for one, who Godzilla is, but also the human characters are slightly more interesting, even though, in my opinion, I still can't stand Aaron Taylor-Johnson in that movie. But I think the problem is that when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, that was not well received, and it didn't
not good.
It didn't perform well at the cinema. So they were just like, okay, we need to get people back in the theaters to see these movies. So we need, the two creatures that we set up in this universe to fight and just eliminate the care of the human characters. We're going to have human characters, but we're just going to make it so you don't care as much. Yeah. And now these movies are making just insane amount of money. And so I think they're just kind of sticking to that formula because they tried to go back to the serious note of Monarch, which was the Apple TV show that branched Godzilla 2014 to kind of the rest of that universe. But it was kind of weird to like see Godzilla versus Kong, which is just this, it's just, a boxing match between two kaijus, and the human characters are just kind of like, they're there, but who cares? Yeah. And then you're going back to a more grounded story with characters that you're trying to care for. And I actually cared for the characters in that show. Like Kurt Russell was in it, and they were trying to branch the history of Monarch. And I thought it was a very interesting show, and I enjoyed it. But then now we're going back to Godzilla X Kong and more just boxing matches and flying through it's just insane. But you know what? I'm here for it. I'm having a good time with it.
Yeah. It looks fun. I definitely want to see it. I'm not sure I'll see it in the cinema. I'm not sure. But I mean, Godzilla's in using the Colosseum as a bed, which looks kind of fun.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, that certainly in this century, the history of where we've got to now with monster films. We were talking earlier this week about because you originally picked Jurassic Park and how that kind of revitalized the monster film, even though I would say a lot of people maybe don't consider those monster films, but they are really. And then, Roland Emmerich decided to revamp Godzilla as Jimmy Savile as a dinosaur film. Yeah, that's the joke in our country for that film. And then obviously it was I enjoyed that film as a kid, but
I'm still a defender, man. I'm still I recently bought a Godzilla 98 shirt. It's got the release date on the back. I have
it was pretty huge at the time. Yeah.
It's one of those it's another movie where it's not good. It's not good. We did a 3-hour episode on that movie, and most of it is just people not talking about kind of the major flaws of it, but it's one of those I might have that movie built in me as nostalgia. And when I sit down today to watch it, it's still built on nostalgia. But I now, as a mature adult, can watch the movie and point out the flaws, but still go, you know what? I can just fast forward through that and just get me back to when we're flying around fighting this giant iguana and fighting its iguana babies. I don't care. I just don't care. And I understand. And I'm not going to be like, no, it's a good movie. You guys just don't understand. No, I understand. It's not a good movie. I understand it's not a good movie.
It's fun though.
But I'm a sucker for it.
Yeah. But I feel like that film definitely killed the genre a bit, and just the dinosaur film, the Jurassic Park films kind of took over.
Absolutely.
And then your choice, I think, revitalized kind of the monster film, and we've got all these new monster films now, which is kind of really interesting. But my choice, though, comes from the other side of the world, from South Korea, Bong Joon-ho's film, The Host. So why did I pick this film? Probably mainly because when I was doing my research, I was just kind of the usual suspects are always coming up in my searches, King Kong, Godzilla, etc. And there was a few interesting ones, like Gareth Edwards' first film that kind of that got him the Godzilla gig in the first place, creatively called Monsters. That was a pretty good one, but I ultimately went with The Host mainly because I haven't seen it, and when I was researching it, it kind of came up in quite highly on all these ranking articles of ranking monster films. So so I went with The Host. So what happens in The Host? Well, a monster emerges from Seoul's Han River and begins attacking people. One victim's loving family does what it can to rescue her from its clutches. And you've got all sorts of things to with politics going on, and are the government kind of are they using this situation for their own good kind of thing. So there's some kind of interesting satire going on here as well. And this film is really surprisingly funny. which I did not expect.
No, I was the same way. I'm just watching it going, this is kind of dark. And then they're just throwing in these jokes or like the situations, and you're like, I don't know if I should be like okay with this.
Yeah.
Or it's just based on the situation. It's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense with what they're dealing with. So, yeah.
So initial reactions for you, Parker? What did you make of the host?
So this is also my first time ever seeing this movie.
Yeah.
So I had heard a lot about it over the years, especially now that Bong Joon-ho is now a
household name,
award-winning. Yeah, he's a household name, award-winning director. I had seen Snowpiercer, which was directed by him. Didn't know that for the longest time. More right. Because that was more aimed at American audiences, where it was kind of like, I think mostly in the beginning it was like he was the director, but they didn't really push his name out there. But like Parasite, when Parasite came out, that's when his name kind of flashed on everybody's screen. And so I had been recommended this quite a bit over the years of like, you want to see a cool monster movie, check out The Host. And I'm like, and before I got into podcasting, I really didn't watch a lot of foreign films.
Right. Yeah.
I was a sucker for just mostly your household name films that were coming out here. I really didn't look into that stuff, so it wasn't really on my radar. But now that since getting into podcasting, I've broadened my horizons quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so I have ventured into probably more foreign films than I watch American films. So it's been a ride.
Awesome.
So yeah, The Host, so I kind of went into The Host expecting what I was seeing. So Godzilla was the same way. Like if you look at some of the original Godzilla films, they kind of play out in a similar manner. And so when The Host is doing the same thing, you're like, okay, that makes sense. It's like there's this creature,
radioactive stuff.
Yeah, it's supposedly putting off this radioactive material or this virus. Instead of it focusing on the monster, it's focusing on the politics and the people behind how do we stop this? How do we what do we do? And then you have this family who's dealing with the loss of somebody in their family. And it put me in it. Like I was just hyper focused on what I was watching.
Yeah. And
it really pulls you in on every beat. There's just moments of just straight up dialogue that go on for like 5 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting that you're not bored. And I think that's my biggest thing with like movies like this, where you're like, oh man, I feel like you could trim down that conversation a little bit, or you could trim. It's like, I want to see the monster. I want to see more of the monster. But to be honest, when you see the monster, you're like,
it's weird.
It's like, okay, that's cool, but it's kind of doing the same thing all the time. So it's like, let's go back to the human aspect, because it's weird, because mostly in monster movies, you're more hyper focused on the monster. You want to see more of the monster.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's like, I want to see less of the monster, because I think that makes it more eerie.
Yeah, definitely. I think the design is like really interesting. I don't know, it's very difficult to describe. It's like a weird kind of fish with legs and kind of got legs on the top of its body. I don't know. It's just really weird eyes as well. Like something you would imagine that has been mutated by something really toxic, so I think they got that like spot on, really. And like with its mouth, it's just very odd how that kind of works. And also, I guess one of my main criticisms, but you can kind of give it a pass, because like the story is pretty strong, is the CG does look a tad dated, but like when it does get set on fire towards the end, it doesn't look amazing. But that would be my only criticisms, I would say.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
There are moments where I think that's also why I don't like seeing the monster as much in this, because the fact that the effects work
takes you out a little bit,
as good as they should be. Yeah, it takes you out. And there are some moments where it looks really good, but then there's other moments where you're like, ooh, they could have focused a little bit more on maybe how it looked in that moment.
Yeah.
But as you said, the human aspect of the story is so strong that you're just like, it's okay. It's okay if you look like a sci-fi film when the monster's here. But
even like the direction around the monster scenes is really good, though, from Bong Joon-ho. It's really well done, and it does feel kind of scary in moments, for sure. Yeah, and it's just kind of really inventive the way it moves. Sometimes the swinging under the bridge was quite cool. A bit weird at first, but like you get used to it, I guess, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, the movement is definitely cool. I think something that I really liked about this, especially in the beginning, is before you actually see the creature, there are moments where you're seeing other people see it after the whole opening.
Yeah.
But you don't see anything. You don't see a shadow. You don't see anything. You have like the guy who's going to be jumping off the bridge.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you see it? And they're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, and they're like, oh, morons till the end or something like that.
Yeah, that was funny.
And then he jumps. And again, I was like, I get what you're trying to do, but that bridge does not look tall enough for it to affect you. I feel like I could have jumped off that bridge, just had a good time. But that's just an annoying thing that I picked up watching the movie. I was like, come on, man.
Yeah, I mean the monster's got him. I think the monster's got him.
Oh yeah, I think that's kind of the whole thing, because they later mentioned that they found his body, but it was like in half or something like that.
Something like that. So directing, then I loved how underplayed like the build up is to seeing this sea monster for the first time. Like Gangdu's character goes out to like deliver this kind of disgusting looking grilled squid to a customer, and they all notice something hanging off the bridge, and the shot is pretty wide, so you can't really see much detail, and there's no like creative shot there. It's just a big wide shot of it just hanging, you know. But I love this little shot of all these people just staring at it with their jaws hanging open for a little moment before it falls in the water, and I found that a little funny as well. That was kind of good. Then when Gangdu throws a beer in the river, you can see like the shadow of the monster's arm like grab it, then everyone throws a beer in the water, but then it goes away and you think, oh, that's the end of the scene, like the film will just move on from here. Then you get this great like push-in shot on Gangdu, and the reverse angle shows us in the distance the sea monster is just charging at them. And it took me a moment to realize what the hell was going on. I was like, oh shit, it's coming straight at them. Then again, I thought the scene was like over when we cut to a girl listening to music, like quite quietly. Then we just see people running in the background. Then before you know it, it grabs her by the sea monster grabs her. So it was just like some great unpredictability there in that opening little sequence.
Yeah, the buildup is so like tame.
Yeah, just little bits here and there, you know, and it just lets the action happen.
Because when they do that shot of the close-in shot where the monster is charging them, I don't think there's any sound, right? It's quiet.
You just hear the people. Yeah.
Yeah, you see like certain people are running, and then people in front of them are just kind of casually walking because they don't know what's going on. And then it's just like hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
And you got the great shot of the woman just sitting on the bench listening to music, and she gets taken. And you're like, holy crap. Yeah. And it just goes and goes and goes, and it does not let up until ultimately the daughter gets taken.
Yeah.
And he reacts to it.
I love the kind of the comedy that leads up to the daughter getting taken as well, like the chaos that ensues, like with the American that helps Gangdu in the attack of, well, they try and attack the monster with this sign, and it practically doesn't do anything at all. And I loved it in moments where we just see like a pair of legs just in the monster's mouth struggling to eat someone. There's like a little bit of Gangdu picking up this sign over his head, and then there's like a shot of the base of this sign like sticking out above these trucks before he throws it at the monster. That is just done for pure comedy for me. Then soon after, like Gangdu's daughter comes out and is completely oblivious to what's just happened. Before you know it, she's been taken by the sea monster, and there's a lot of like slow-mo in there. So it feels quite dramatic in that point. So I love the mix of shock and comedy in moments in this attack by the sea monster in the beginning.
Do you spend all of your waking moments watching reality TV? Well, you're in good company. I'm Will.
And I'm Marissa. And we're the hosts of Cheers to Chaos Reality TV and Cocktails, a new weekly podcast that covers the ever so entertaining and cringy world of reality television.
Each week, we'll be raising our glasses and diving into the latest drama and chaos from our favorite reality TV shows.
From 90 Day Fiancé to The Bachelor, we've got all your reality favorites covered.
So grab a drink and join us as we clink our glasses to the hilarious and delightful train wrecks of reality TV.
Subscribe now to Cheers to Chaos, Reality TV and Cocktails on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, the sign. I mean, I definitely get the comedy of the sign beating because it's one of those things where I was looking, I was like, that's probably way heavier than you would expect, because that's like a solid concrete base on that sign, and he is picking that up by himself, putting it over his head and hitting this thing. And so I think that was the comedy for me. I'm like, there's no way one person is picking that sign up. Like, they were having trouble when it was him and the American picking it up, and now he's picking it up just by himself. I thought that was pretty funny. But the whole thing with, he's got the girl, he thinks he has his daughter's hand, but then he looks and it's a different girl that looks almost identical to her, except for she's wearing glasses. And so he gets like, oh no. And, his daughter gets taken. The way that they play with it later, it's another comedy beat, because you're like, why are you're really calling this guy a moron because he grabbed the wrong girl? Like, initially he did have her hand, right? Like, was I crazy? Like, he did grab her hand.
He did.
They fell down, and he must have went to reach again and grabs the wrong girl. And it's like, it's just a mistake in that tense of a moment. But then you got the drunk brother coming in later, like, you're an idiot for grabbing the wrong girl. And you're like,
brothers, I guess.
Oh man, this family is dysfunctional.
Messed up. But yeah, it's just really well directed, the fact that they keep it pretty tight in slow-mo, and you don't really notice it until he notices it. So it's quite clever, subtly done there, I think. There's a really interesting scene where we find this other family like scavenging for food, like midway through, and the monster is chasing them to this door. Then there's this like great cut as the camera focuses on the door, and Gangdu's family like slowly opens the door the same way to this room from the inside, and there's like loads of food in it. So you assume the other family have been killed by the monster. So it's just really efficient storytelling there. He does that with another little scene, that kind of technique. But the family are in relative safety, but the monster could be like really close by. So there's some like mild tension there, that the monster could come out when they're all, talking and eating food together. But then this really interesting thing happens when like the daughter, Hyun Seo, gets up from the floor and like starts eating with them. But like Gangdu and his sister are like not shocked at all. They just think she's just actually there, even though she's not, because she's all clean. It's all like it's like this sense of normalcy that they're just like clinging on to for me, that they all used to like eat together like this. Maybe, I don't know, it's just a really kind of surreal little scene there.
Yeah, or they're just going through like, it's such a traumatic experience, everything that they've gone through, the fact that they're in this hospital, they couldn't leave. I know that I can't remember everybody's names, but the main guy, the dad, he is being tested more because he's the one, he got blood on his face and he yells it out in the middle of this thing. And then so they're just, they're tired, they've been through so much. And so when they go to that, back to their, I believe this is their dad's truck, right? Like, this is the food cart,
something like that. Yeah.
And they have that meal, and she shows up. Yeah, it's slowly like he reacts the most of any of them, because it's like he's just surprised she's there, but then it's kind of just normal, right? They're all feeding her food, and they all look exhausted and hungry. So it's just kind of their minds messing with them, but to the point where they just accept it instead of freaking out. Because I think in any other type of movie that has this similar scene, I think you would just have more of like an overreaction, like, oh my God, she's back. When did this happen? Where it's like they just accept what's happening and pretend like it's normal.
And I think it kind of plays into this idea as well, that is the virus doing this to them? Even though once you finish watching it, there is no virus. But at that point in the film, you're like, okay, is the virus messing with them? Is this what they're going for here in the direction and the storytelling? But I don't think that's the case. But yeah, I think it's just this like clinging on to normalcy thing, because as you say, it's just a really traumatic event that it's their time, this moment, to like just relax a little bit and just be together without having like a monster on their tail, or at least having the sense that a monster's around, even though it kind of is anyway. So
right.
Have you got a favorite shot or scene for you, Parker?
That first appearance of the monster is definitely so iconic. I think it's when people talk about this movie, I think that is probably the number one scene of the entire thing. You know, of the monster just kind of going through and causing mass chaos. I mean, I think anything that happens in the hole that it lives in, the fact that it like delivers, like, constantly delivering the bodies that are some are dead, some are not. But then later on, there's the shot that it shows back up and it throws up all the bones. So it's one of the it's very traumatic, especially when the kids are down there seeing what's happening. You know, it's one of those traumatic scenes that really just shows maybe there's just no hope for these characters to escape. You know, they make that line of clothes to get up. It's too short, so they can't reach it from the ground, which is like, oh my God. And then she, has to use the creature to get up there, but then the creature grabs her again. And you're like, there's just no hope for them to get out.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene as well. Like that particular scene where she's jumping up. Well, there's a scene before where she throws this rope up with this baton using, I guess, the clothes of all these victims from the monster. But obviously she has this idea that obviously the monster is asleep. She throws a beer can on it and it doesn't wake up. So she musters the courage to run and jump onto it. You're like, oh yeah, she's made it. Like, hang on, why are you not carrying on? Climb up the rope, you silly girl. What are you doing? But obviously the shot is just on like above her shoulders, so you can't see why she stopped. And then a beautiful like camera move as the camera like pulls out and to reveal that the monster has just grabbed her and just slowly puts her down. And it's like the monster's doing it like subconsciously. It's like, oh, I got something on my back. Let's take it off. So yeah, that was great. But then like the tension is still there. She's just like frozen still. Then this kind of like spider walks up her arm. And there's a lot of shots going back and forth from her face to the eye of the monster that doesn't really look like an eye at all, frankly.
Yeah, it's all cloudy.
Yeah. And then she kind of just moves her foot a little bit to try and escape. And then the eye moves, and then then they both move. It feels like at the same time, and then just the action ensues, and it looks incredible in that moment. So yeah, the tension in that scene was fantastic.
I think the scene where the family sees the monster like catching water outside, like it's like right next to their food cart.
Yeah.
And so they go after it, they shoot at it, and then it's kind of like a foot chase. They all have like shotguns and they're shooting. And it gets to the point where they all get together and everyone's out of ammo, but Gangdu says he has one bullet. So he gives the gun to his dad, and his dad's like, I'm going to kill this thing once and for all. And then when it gets to that point, he shoots, there's nothing left, and he kind of counts to himself before he just accepts his fate. And I think it really, it links up to a scene from the night before where he's explaining he's explaining why Gangdu is the way he is.
Yeah.
He was, I guess, abused as a kid, but not by the parents. He was beaten up a lot by other kids and just had a difficult time. And so it's at this point, the siblings don't care either. Like he's telling the story and the siblings are like falling asleep. And, but he's explaining kind of just why he is the way he is. And so when he figures out that the bullet, he didn't actually have one bullet left, it kind of puts the question up in the air of like, is Gangdu really that dumb? Or it was just a common mistake. Like it was just a mistake. It's not like these people are firearm experts.
Can you see him like counting on his fingers? He's like, oh shit, I got it wrong.
I think that's a very traumatic scene of, the dad kind of just waving him away, accepting his fate that he's going to die. Yeah. And the monster, does what it does. In the beginning, it like headbutts him, knocking him to the ground, but then it like throws him like 50 feet onto concrete, like not even into the water. It's like, no, he's dead.
Yeah.
He's gone. There's nothing you can do.
He's just like, he's too old. I don't want to eat him later.
Yeah, it's just I think that whole sequence is pretty gut wrenching.
Yeah,
I think because you really start to grow, especially the grandfather. You really start to like him, and
absolutely.
really see like what he has to deal with every day because his family is so dysfunctional.
Yeah, as soon as he pulls the trigger and there's no bullet, you kind of know he's not gonna live here. Parker, directional score for you? What are you going for? Out of 10?
Oh, I mean, I'm what is this out of 5?
Out of 10. You can use decimals if you want.
Out of 10? Oh, sorry. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
9.
I think it's so well shot. Every shot is just so well planned out. You can tell. I mean, like you were saying with the shot where, you know, she's trying to escape and you're yelling at your TV, why aren't you continuing to climb? And then it kind of, just that shot alone, you're like, this guy cares enough to really look deep into how he's going to shoot certain things to kind of get people to question why certain things are happening the way they are, because he's really giving you that close up emotional shot, but you don't really know what's happening around. You're just seeing things based on a facial expression. And I think he does it very well throughout this entire movie. So,
are you a baseball fan? Do you watch movies, TV, or are you curious about the lives of professional baseball players or people in the entertainment industry? Then Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jacks is the podcast for you. Hosted by Jeff Santo, a writer-director and son of a Hall of Fame Chicago Cubs baseball player, this podcast comes out every other Thursday with extraordinary guest interviews and surprise Cracker Jack guests. It's fun, it's emotional, it's Peanuts, Popcorn, and Cracker Jacks.
Yeah, I think, Bong Joon-ho, I think he's very aware of his budget and like what he can do. He's very aware of what he can do with the monster and what he can't. So I guess he is using the actors where he can, as you say, like being as creative as he can with those monster scenes and making them as good as possible with the budget he's got, and utilizing his actors to the full effect in relation to this whole story, really. And just the creativity with the action of the monster scenes is just great, all of them, really. So I don't think I'll go as high as a 9, but I think I'll go like an 8.7 for me. Screenplay, then. Like the first hour of this film, you think you know what you're watching, like where a monster arrives on the scene that has been like mutated and supposedly spreading a virus. It's a fairly standard plot where like the daughter of this family gets captured by the monster and a family escape the authorities and go back into the quarantine zone and try and find their daughter. And in like the first half of the film, the main threat to the family is definitely the monster, and there's some dilemma there whether to just find the daughter or to just kill the monster, which gets the father Haibong killed by the monster. Then there's this like news footage transitional scene explaining that the American government has taken control of the situation and now using Agent Yellow, this gas, to kill the virus and the monster. Now it feels like the main threat to the family is now the government with like the chemical weapons and not necessarily the monster. Like the government had some presence in the beginning, but not as much compared to the monster. But now in the second half, there's, wanted posters up of the family, these escaped people out of the quarantine zone that are infected, etc. So it feels like they have to be more careful about the government and not the monster, which I found to be like a great change up from a fairly like standard story that we've kind of seen a lot before. There's a scene that like reminded me a lot of the scene in Jaws as well, with like Quint telling Hooper and Brody about like the Indianapolis story. Like there's a similar thing there where they're in this like small metal cabin room and like the father Haibong is telling Nam Il and Nam Jo about like Gangdu's troubled story, as you said, Parker, while he's sleeping, but it's laced with comedy. While he's telling the story, like the brother and sister are slowly falling asleep, while towards the end of Haibong's story, Gangdu is like wide awake and saying the monster is like watching us. So just like in Jaws, with where like the shark interrupts the story on the boat by banging on the hull, then in this there's like a cool action scene with the family trying to shoot the monster again, like similar to Jaws, where the three are trying to hunt the shark again. So a great homage, but with added comedy.
It definitely really puts you, like, it really changes things up, and I think it really surprises you kind of in the direction that they go with, like, yeah. I think you kind of just nailed it, the fact that we get kind of our typical monster movie trope of just like monster shows up, causes issues, families or just humans period are trying to survive this creature, and then that second half is like, nope, it's actually the government. The government is our biggest villain, because then you find out later that there is no virus.
Yeah.
And that this monster is just this. I mean, this monster, you find out, is from the very beginning, you understand where this monster comes from, because this movie opens up with that formaldehyde scene where this guy, I was like,
an asshole.
I would have punched this guy in the face. He's a piece of shit. Yeah, he sucks.
Just put it down the drain, man. It's like, this is against protocol. Put it down the drain. I don't care. It's dirty. It's got dust on it. What? It's in a bottle.
Like, what? Like, everything this guy was saying just made me so angry. If I was the assistant there, I would just blatantly be like, no, fire me. I don't care. I'm not doing that. Either you do it or no one's doing it.
I'm not creating a mutant fish.
Yes. And when you later find out that there is no virus, that the government is just doing this to not say they were wrong, which I don't understand why governments can't just accept when they're wrong. Accept when they say something initially, that they can turn back and be like, okay, we did some more research, we found out it's not a virus, so that's fine. We're not going to do this agent, because this whole Agent Yellow thing, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm like, it's such a uncontrolled weapon. I feel like, and it's just interesting where you have all these kind of fog trucks going around. Like, I know it's kind of this is supposed to be this quarantine zone, and like no one's supposed to be around, but I feel like it's still, it just doesn't feel right when you're watching it.
Yeah. Because there's another scene or two where they talk about the American from the fight, and they talk about how he died of the virus
in the news footage.
Yeah, they had he had a bunch of like rashes and stuff on him when he died and stuff, and then Gangdu is talking about how he's really itchy and he's scratching his back a lot. And you're just expecting to see something, but you never do. You see him scratching, but you never see anything there. So it's playing into the fact that there's a virus. It's kind of just, planting in somebody's head. So then they get, like, if someone tells you, oh, hey, I got chicken pox, but you don't have it, but like you automatically start itching. It's kind of like that type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's only like the one scene where you see that, and it's very brief, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like, the government are just like grasping on this very kind of small aspect of this whole situation, and like just building their whole story on that, but then you have like scenes where Gangdu is in this little facility, and they're trying to give him an anesthetic or something, and it's not going into his skin or something, or they're trying to get like a tissue sample, and they're finding it really difficult because the anesthetic isn't working. It's just all these kind of little strange things that kind of feed onto you as an audience member watching it, of like, hang on, is it the virus or not? But obviously they blatantly tell you from one American surgeon. So, but I mean, is he reliable anyway? You don't know. So I kind of like the fact that in this script, like, nothing's for certain, I guess, even though it is kind of said out loud. But
yeah, because like that scene with the surgeon, it's also played up for laughs if you think about it. The way that things are done, like he comes to him and he's like, "So I hear
straight up comedy.
I hear your daughter's missing. She's still alive." Like, and all that. I recognize this guy. He was one of the goofy scientists from Silence of the Lambs.
Oh,
who helps Clarice with the Death Head's moth. he's explaining like how he wants to help him and stuff like that. But then he walks like 2 feet away from him and explains to this guy who's working with him, like, oh yeah, so they said there's no virus. Yep. That's just what's going on. And Gangdu's like, there's no virus? And they're like,
it's a great comedy turn from him. He's like, oh, I did not know you could speak English. Shit.
yeah. And then they give him a lobotomy pretty much. They drill it into his head and you're like, what? It's just so drastic.
Well, he was just like, yeah, we're definitely going to operate on you now.
yeah. Can't have you remembering that.
Like the second half of this film, they do something kind of interesting and structurally that I didn't expect. And that was they split up like the 3 remaining family members. Like Nam-il, the brother, is trying to like locate Hin Sao by using like the daughter, by using a so-called friend to like track her phone, you know, and he gets portrayed in that kind of little cool scene where he short circuits the building to black it out and, you know, he escapes. That was pretty cool. And then Nam Jo, the sister, is on her own mission to find Hin Sao, but she seemingly gets bumped off quite quickly after Nam-il tells her where she is, and Nam Jo travels under all these bridges so covertly, and you get a strong sense that the film like goes into this almost very post-apocalyptic world, you know, that the government has created themselves. But when she's about to like aim at the monster just seems to kill her. And it did feel a little disappointing that she would die like that. But obviously she comes back. But it still kind of bummed me out a little bit. But Gangdu is, of course, like captured by the authorities and basically being experimented on. And you assume he's in this like big facility, as we've kind of talked about a little bit. But when he escapes, they're on like the outskirts of the city. And it's almost like the whole thing has been staged. Like they're just people. There's just people having a barbecue, frankly, outside.
Yeah.
So that all kind of feeds into this idea that the government are using this situation for kind of propaganda, or they really don't know what the hell they're doing. And also, like the 3 characters, they're in quite a desperate situation. The fact that, you know, they're all kind of split up, the way the film splits them up, kind of creates that feeling. So it's interesting how different, you know, that the first half and the second half plays out in the film.
Yeah, it definitely, like I said, it takes you for a ride.
Yeah.
Because you have that first half that is so, I don't want to say paint by numbers, because I feel like that's underlying how really good this movie is and how well made it is. I think, though, once we get to that second half, it's really diving deep into the human aspect of everything that's going on, and now the family is split up and doing their own thing. And yeah, the fact that we kind of get that fake out of the sister getting knocked out, ultimately you think she dies, like right after you see her again. You know, she's been hiding in the bridge, she's still wearing the same clothes she's been in kind of the whole movie.
Did that annoy you, or were you all right with that?
The fact that she was still dressed in the same clothes.
no, the fact that she kind of gets, it seems like she gets killed by the monster.
Yeah, it was kind of underwhelming.
Yeah.
Because but also I kind of felt like she didn't die because of the fact that we have known from the beginning that she is like a professional archer.
And you're like, yeah, the archer thing is going to come back at some point.
It has to come back. It has to be played in some way. I think it's a kind of written in the stars that if she is this type of person, she has to have some sort of, you know, epic finale. So I kind of seeing it, I was like, ooh, she got smoked. Like she bounces off that concrete like, you know, like a pinball. Because
you had that scene with the dad dying in a fairly similar way. You're like,
how did she survive that?
Is she alive?
Yeah. And then she falls a pretty good.
But there was no blood, I guess.
Spot. Yeah. Yeah. So it was a little underwhelming at first, but I kind of figured that she wasn't going to die. I felt this movie definitely had to have all 3 of these siblings who are always at odds with each other. You feel like they don't really care for each other too much, are going to come together and have this kind of epic family moment where they're going to be the ones to stop this creature. So Yeah, I mean, I think it was cool that it's kind of each character is going through very like different things. Like they're very drastically different things. You know, the sister's doing what she did, and then you have the brother who is, you know, trying to get information, and he gets betrayed. But I feel like the guy helped him also at the end as well. Like when he leaves, he puts up his fist. Like, you go, brother. Like, you got this.
Yeah. And also, sorry.
Sorry I had to do that. They're paying a lot of money. Yeah, and then Gangdu, you know, being in what he thought was this massive facility, and what you think it's a massive facility. He goes outside, and it's like a trailer in the middle of, like, as you said, the outskirts of the city, and you have these American soldiers out there that are, I'm guessing, working alongside the South Korean military, and they're having barbecues, big old steaks.
Comparing Texas and Korean barbecues, you know.
Yeah, you're like, what is going on here?
I really want to do a Korean barbecue one day. I really do. It's really nice.
That sounds so good. But he's threatening them. He's like, and he doesn't have a weapon. His weapon is his own blood. And people are scared of it because I feel like not everyone knows.
Yeah.
That it's not the virus doesn't exist. Yeah, the way it all plays out of them kind of getting back together, I think it's just really well done.
Yeah, as you say, I really liked how it all comes together to fight through this environment that the government has basically created themselves, you know, to fight the monster together, and are all involved to kill the monster. So you have all that, and they all finally find Hyun Sao, and yet she dies at the end, which feels extremely tragic. And I was just waiting for her to like wake up, but it never happens. Like, there is definitely a bittersweet ending, of course, with Hyun Sao's companion living, and Gangdu ends up raising him. So in the end, it felt so much more epic, and there's so much more like going on that just a simple, just gotta kill the monster type movie. You know, it's not that at all. And yeah, just the fact that you have all our main characters like working together to take down the monster. It felt very creative and very kind of not forced either, because you have the brother like dropping the grenade, the Molotov cocktail. You know, the girl lights it and fires it at him, so that was kind of cool. I mean, there's too many films these days for me where you have all these characters, and then when it comes to the end, like there's so many that's just not important anymore. I saw Ghostbusters Afterlife. I really did not like that film, you know, because hardly any of them have an impact on the final battle, you know. But here, everyone is important. If you take one character out, like they're gonna fail, and they kind of fail anyway because the daughter dies. So you know. This film just does a great job of giving every character really strong meaning.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, you know, you even have like these characters that we've known for like 2 minutes that are joining in on the fight.
Yeah, like the hobo.
Yeah, you're like,
he was cool.
Okay,
he drips the gasoline on the monster. You know.
Yeah. And I mean, I did laugh though when I think is it Nam Il, the brother?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he drops the
yeah.
Oh my god, the Molotov cocktail. He slips out of as he throws it just falls behind him, and I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah, that's what is really kind of surprising about this film. It mixes like really dramatic stuff and juxtaposes it with extreme comedy, like really close together in that. And that definitely reminded me of those opening scenes in The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, where the Norwegian guy, he's trying to throw the grenade at the wolf, I think, and he drops it, and then he blows up or whatever.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That brought me straight back to that scene.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely cool to see, was it Namju shoot her arrow? She takes like a piece of the fire and shoots it at the creature, setting it ablaze. My only question is, did that Agent Yellow actually have any effect on these people? Because it felt like it didn't have any effect on them, but it did affect other people, because there's people like throwing up blood, like after the effects of it, and it's clearly affecting the creature too, because the creature reacts to it. But it's kind of like the final killing blow with the with the fire, and then him shoving the sign pole, which I thought was pretty ironic that he used a sign pole to end it, because that's kind of the first weapon he uses against the creature, so it's kind of a callback. And but yeah, it doesn't seem like any of them are affected by this Agent Yellow.
No,
yeah, some others are, and you're like,
you do see a little bit of blood from other people, but not much.
Right.
And I did get the feeling I was just like, oh shit, are they all going to die like later on,
right? Because they're just sucking it in.
Or are we just supposed to read that as like it's just supposed to be a given that they're going to die well, I don't know. They're all going to have like major health issues later on in life, but then I feel like there is a jump forwards with Gangju and now his adopted son, I guess. And they seem to be fine. So,
yeah, even that final shot of the snow coming down and kind of zooming out on the building, you're expecting something.
Yeah, that was great
to come from the shadows, but you get nothing. And I think that is a great way to end it. I thought it was great to kind of even give you at that last moment. You're still on edge. Like, is it over? Fully over?
Yeah, I did like that. Yeah. Favorite lines for you, Parker? Have you got any?
Oh, this is something I'm horrible at. At remembering people's lines. So,
okay. For me, I quite like the one near the beginning between the daughter and the father, where she says, "Like, this is alcohol. You're in middle school now." Like,
that is a good one.
Yeah. Are you really my father? What, are you really my father? That was kind of cool.
Well, actually, thinking back, I do like when the grandfather comes up to Gangdu and is like, so I just brought this squid over and it only had 9 legs. And where did that other leg go? And he slowly takes it out of his sweatshirt. And he's like, okay, we'll bring this one over to them and tell them it's on the house.
Yeah, that was funny. I can still eat the spare leg, though. Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
But I think my favorite is when they're trying to find out what's happened to the daughter, and I think he's like, she's deceased, but she's not dead. It was
that one was good. That has to be one of my top lines. That one was great because I'm sitting there going, huh?
Because that's what's really interesting about this film is that like Gangdu is not your typical hero at all. He's not like this charismatic leader of this family. He's really like the opposite of the leader of the family. He's the one that's portraying the most desperation out of all of them. Obviously, of course he would, because he's the father of the daughter, not the others, but still, like, they're all family. But it's just really interesting that he's clearly the least intelligent one out of all of them, and yet he's the lead. This is the one that we're following, and this is the character that we're really caring about the most, which I find really fascinating, and you don't really see that very often. And it just, again, kind of creates a lot of this great unpredictability about what is really going to happen. Is he going to make it out alive? You know, I think it definitely just creates a lot of doubt of whether in your mind, like, which characters are really gonna survive this, because I feel like there aren't really stereotypes here. Really, they feel pretty rounded characters that we don't often see before.
Yeah, because he's that character who, you know, you see him throughout the movie. You see him in the beginning, and he just seems, for one, he seems like a child.
Yeah.
And then you meet his daughter, and then you find out he's the dad, and you're like, okay, let's see where this goes. And it just doesn't get better, because you could tell he's more of like a friend than he is her father, to the point where, yeah, she even questions it. Like, are you actually my dad?
Yeah.
Like, he actually sent his brother to her school for, like, the heck is that day? Like, bring your parent to work day or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you see how he is throughout the movie, and how people call him dumb, and how he just makes the worst decisions. And then when his daughter actually dies at the end, and he gets this adopted son from the situation, it's like he gets to kind of redo being a father. He gets to, he's fixing his life. You could see at the end, he doesn't have the, you know, the blonde hair anymore. And he looks more acceptable as like a father figure, as somebody who is really going to put in the work to do it, where I don't think he was doing that before. He just existed to her. He really wasn't a father to her.
He was relying a lot on the other family members, especially his own dad, in this family business. And he was just along for the ride kind of thing, just eating squid when he's not supposed to. I mean, why would you want to eat that? I'm not sure, but yeah. I suspect it's very nice. I'm not a seafood guy.
I like calamari, but that did not look appetizing to me.
No. Screenplay score, Parker, what are you going for?
I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
When it comes to the humor, I think there are some humorous beats that kind of throw me off in like not a good way. Like where I'm like, okay, this is kind of a weird situation to be like, haha, make a joke type deal. But the rest of it, I think, is really well done. I think we could have gone a little bit less on seeing the creature. I think there were moments where we see the creature attack like random people. And I'm like, I wish we just didn't see that. Like if we saw the creature just show up back to the hole with more bodies, I think it would have been fine. Okay. I didn't think we need to see those people getting attacked.
What, in the beginning?
No, I think so. There was like two guys in like hazmat suits walking around on a side road near the river, and they get attacked. I mean, it's a cool scene, if you're seeing the creature doing these things. But I'm a huge advocate for seeing, like, when it comes to a creature feature, it comes to a movie, especially a movie with such impact like this. Like if we're talking about Anaconda, that movie's not. We're not there for the human characters. We're there to see them get eaten by giant snakes, right? So I want to see all the giant snakes. But when it has such an impactful story, I think seeing less of the creature is better. And so I think they could have maybe eliminated some of the actual visuals of seeing the creature taking its prey.
I guess they were kind of going for this idea that they didn't want to lose the presence of the creature, maybe of the monster. Because I guess the film is trying to go for more of a balance. They're trying to strike a balance between where the threats are here. You still want a presence of the sea monster as well as having what's going on with the government, with their propaganda. So I feel like if you just completely get rid of the sea monster stuff towards the end, you're kind of losing your monster movie a little bit. But yeah, I see what you're saying as well, because like when those two guys in the hazmat suit get killed, they're nobody characters. They're kind of meaningless deaths, so it doesn't have too much of an impact on the overall story, really. So yeah, I get what you mean as well.
Yeah, you could either do that, or you could aim it in a different direction. Like, for instance, the guy walks up to the edge. There's like a guardrail. He looks out into the water. Maybe you see a shadow coming towards them, or you see maybe the fins coming up, and you kind of see it swimming towards it. And then you kind of have like one of those from the character's point of view of him seeing a creature attack them, but it kind of goes black. So what happens. You kind of get a glimpse of the creature, but it's not a full like creature attack scene. So you still have the effect of, there is a creature here.
He kind of just jumps out.
He jumps out. He grabs one of them. Then he like destroys a truck.
Yeah, he just like jumps on it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
That was kind of like used in a kind of a bit of a comedy way for the sea monster itself. So it's like, this is a nice bed. I'm going to sit here for a while. Huh? I mean, what comedy bits did not work for you then?
I don't know. I think when it came to the family, I think there was just, I understand what they were dealing with. I think it was more of the comedic charm of coping with the situation. So they're making a lot of jokes, but I think, and it could have also been the translations on some of the situations, like the English translations, which I know are never perfect.
Aren't great sometimes. Especially on Netflix.
Yeah, I watched it on Hulu, so I don't know how much better it was there. But based on, like, for instance, one of our favorite lines, the one where it's like, she's deceased, but she's alive.
She's dead.
Was that, or she's dead? Was that the actual translation of that situation, or was it just kind of mixed up?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it for me was the scene in the like memorial center, like where they're all
right, yeah,
grieving and they have all the pictures up and stuff, and the brother shows up, and
that's challenging.
Yeah, you're like, could it be just the weird translation, or are these just really weird lines to be yelling? Like, this is where he's like, you're an idiot for grabbing the wrong girl, and
yeah,
and to be honest, it could be put on as comedy because of the way that he's delivering it. And I was just like, it kind of took me out just a little bit.
Okay.
But and then you have the whole thing where they're like wrestling each other to the ground in front of the pictures.
Yeah.
Like the brother shows up, he's drunk, he's got the bottle because you were told he's an alcoholic, so of course he's got this big bottle of booze in his hand. And but then the sister shows up and kind of, she's clearly emotional at the moment. And she goes up to the picture, and I think it kind of vilifies everything that happened before. But then everybody just collapses on the floor and starts flailing around. Yeah. And I went, okay, all right, we're getting a little crazy here. But none of it really took me out to the point where I was like, okay, come on, let's move on here. Yeah. Some of it just didn't feel right for the moment. And that scene specifically.
Okay. I think score-wise for me, I think I'll go like an 8.9. I think I just like the satirical elements here, and I just like how it's just very unpredictable with the first and second half. They do feel like two different movies in a way, but they still work together really well, and it just really helps with portraying like this desperation feel, and it feels just way more epic that second half, because I could just see so many versions where it just doesn't feel as emotional as it could be, whereas I feel like they do push it as much as they can here, and it still really works. So yeah, 8.9 for me. Acting then, I'm going to that scene that you didn't like, Parker, which I actually kind of found kind of funny. And I mean, I guess if you're a regular listener to this podcast, I do like my dark humor. And I don't think I've ever seen a film where a grieving family could be so funny. So when Nam-il and Nam-jo arrive in this school sports hall where they have all the victims' pictures up, and the scene goes how you would expect in the beginning, with all of them feeling extremely emotional. They all seem a little drunk, especially the uncle Nam-il. They're all like huddled together, and Nam-il was getting really like irritated that Gang-do is like hugging him so much and starts pushing him away, and before you know it, they all fall over out of shot. It's the fact that they leave the shot there and just empty it as they fall. That was hilarious to me. And they're all like rolling around on the floor, and Nam-il literally like drop kicks him on the floor.
Yes.
And you can't help but laugh at them crying, and then they all start like fighting each other, and like all these photographers come, and then the security guys I think come to like break them up, and it's just a really bizarre scene, and I couldn't help but laugh at it.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I nitpicked that scene, but it still had its comedic moments for me. I think for me it was the guy coming in later that's like trying to explain what's going on. He's like, we're just gonna watch the news, because he doesn't have a clue what's happening. He's just being told to go in there and have them and just kind of explain where they need to go, and they're like, what's going on? He's like, let's turn on the news. Crap, it's not on right now.
Oh, no, I have no idea what to say. I can't remember.
I thought that was hilarious,
and it's just the way he just like falls over as well when he comes in, just falls over and just comes up. That was a comedy moment where I feel like it went a bit too far.
I feel like that wasn't even on purpose. I feel like that was just a take that that was like, okay, we don't feel like, let's not do that again. And it actually adds to the situation of him just like fumbling over himself as he's coming in to tell everybody what. Everybody thinks he's coming in to tell him what's going on, but actually he's just like, we're all going to buses now. We're going to be going here and there and everywhere.
Like, why is this fog coming into the room? What?
Yeah.
You started early. We are not out yet. Yeah, because I think it just feeds into this idea that the government are just trying to do their own thing, and they don't really know what they're doing, and they've not seen this situation before. I mean, obviously we've kind of had recent history of that anyway, so it's just like,
we still don't know what we're doing here.
So it definitely feeds into that idea as well early on, the film definitely builds on that. And I just do like the humor that kind of goes through this film, kind of laughing at all the characters really in their own kind of way. Any other acting moments that you like, Parker?
I mean, anything that the father does in this movie, I thought it was fantastic. And I think Gang-do, he is just so good at portraying this guy where you're questioning how intelligent he is. Because, it's either, is he looking at something with a blank stare, or is he looking at something, kind of thinking about what situation he wants to be in or what situation they need to be in. So I think, Song Kang-ho, who plays Gang-do, I think he does a great job with portraying this character you're kind of questioning the whole time. And I think all of these actors just being together and with the situations, I think when it came to we talked about the scene really early in the episode, but the table scene where they're all around the table eating and the daughter shows up and kind of just their reactions. And that was something that we just don't see a lot in films, is this kind of, because it's always an overreaction. It's always oh my God. And, hugging and stuff like that, where it's just it's just a normal day. They're just kind of going through it. And I think every performance is just so good in that one scene. I mean, I think, as stated, it's just, I think the family as a whole together doing what they're doing up until the end when the father dies. I think it's all done so well. They are just all different personalities that don't blend well, but the performances blend well.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Song Kang-ho as well, who plays Gang-do as well. I think he's just really good, and it's just really interesting watching like his emotional performance as well. Like sometimes you don't really know how he's going to react, and there's just kind of this really great scene where you're not quite sure where he's at after this kind of lobotomy operation, whether they've actually done it, because he's just like still for ages, and it's like he just snaps into action and grabs this nurse that's got the blood in it. That was a great little scene for him, and like he's really expressive and heightened when towards the end when he is killing the monster, and it's just a great release for that character. And just I feel like each performance is pitched really well to make it feel really epic at the end. So I'm going with him as well. Acting score, Parker, what are you going for?
Oh, this is gonna be a high one. I'm gonna give this one a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I think the 0.5 for me is there's some characters that are just a little too hammy,
right? Okay, yeah, sure.
That really kind of throw it off in a way. Like there was like this guard at the hospital who was just a little bit too. I think it was the guard who talks to them when Gang-do mentions like the whole deceased but she's dead thing, right. And then later on when they escape, he's the one who's running after them, and he like stumbles over himself like a Three Stooges character. And I was like, oh, okay, like I understand you're just I understand like the situation you're in. You're a security guard. You're not you weren't trained for a situation like this, but you're like have you never run before? Like what's going on here? It's just a little too campy for me. And it was one of those characters was like, and the music too was kind of very like circus like. I was like, where are we? What movie are we watching? So, but that is kind of my small gripe. That's the 0.5 right there. So, but everybody else does a stellar job. Yeah,
I'm going to go fairly high as well. I might go a solid 9 for me. I just really love the comedy acting and just the way they can the way they can go from comedy to drama really quickly. I know that's kind of in all three elements here in this film done really well, but I think it's at its best through the acting. Really, it's really great. So well done mixing those two things. 9. Right, let's add up the scores then for the host. Yeah, the host gets 53.6, which is a pretty decent score. And it's going to be pretty hard to beat, I think.
I would say so.
Yes. I may win for once, people. I may win. That's it for part 1. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 2 to see who wins. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell me what your favorite films are relating to the episode. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for X at FVF_podcast. Plus, we are now on YouTube, so hit that like button and comment there. If you do, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.